arguing for the negative against the affirmative today. While the affirmative stated that it is a free choice, for most it's actually just a necessary evil. The ILO, International Labor Organization, reported that most women choose prostitution for economic reasons. They don't wish to be prostitutes, they simply are prostitutes because they have to in order to support them and their families. It was also mentioned that prostitutes aren't so much victims even in legal prostitution. However, a study in 1994 observed that great emotional distress among women in legal indoor prostitution is in Netherlands. So even in legal brothels, prostitutes are still subject to, even when there's no physical violence, they're still subject to many mental problems that greatly affect them and make them victims of their own job. It was found in South Africa that there is no difference in the incidence of PTSD between street prostitution, illegal prostitution, and legal prostitution in brothels. Basically, the emotional experience of prostitution is intrinsically traumatizing regardless of indoor or outdoor location or whether it's legal or illegal. As a legal career, option, a legalization won't actually create better conditions. After New Zealand decriminalized prostitution in 2003, there were still reports among prostituted persons of a continuing stigma and harassment by the general public. So even after prostitution is decriminalized and is made legal, these prostitutes are still going to face the same challenges and same treatment that they did before. As far as labor rights that they will and protection that they will apparently gain, one prostitute stated that her driver functioned as a bodyguard, and you're supposed to call when you get in to ascertain that everything is okay. But they're not standing outside the door while you're in there, so anything can happen. So even with protection, the violence still occurs. It may be prosecuted, but it still occurs. And as one bouncer in an Australian legal brothel said, that when women ring the buzzer, he breaks the door open, but there is no way to prevent the violence. And according to his bouncers, Johns still beat women with some regularity. As a business, prostitution in legal brothels will not actually end illegal prostitution or the problems that are associated with it. As one study in a Forbes article points out, legalization reduces stigma associated with consumption of the banned good. However, the demand may increase by such a large magnitude that part of the void will be filled by an increase in illicit supply. And legal sex businesses basically provide locations where sexual harassment, sexual exploitation, and violence against women are perpetrated with impunity. So even though these places are legal and these Johns may be prosecuted for their crimes, the violence still occurs and is not protected. As far as career as a prostitute, legal prostitution is flawed. Gunilla Ekberg mentions in a speech that the prostitution industry exploits to its advantage the fact that most women and children who are in prostitution come from the most oppressed and vulnerable groups in society. So these people, as I said before, do not want to do this. They may not be physically forced, but they are forced in some way to prostitution. The affirmative also mentions that legalization will save police time and money. However, an article from Demand Abolition points out that that countries that have legalized or decriminalized commercial sex often experience a surge in human trafficking, pimping, and other related crimes. So this research basically affirms that legalization or decriminalization is not the answer to reducing the harms inherent to commercial sex. It also mentions that regulated prostitution increases the size of the overall market for commercial sex, which benefits criminal enterprise that profits from sex trafficking. So while prostitutes may not be getting arrested and put in jail, crimes that are associated with prostitution, such as sex trafficking, are going to rise and therefore take up more resources from the cops and their resources. The last thing the affirmative mentions was the health of the prostitutes. If prostitution was in fact legalized, sex workers would not be healthier. Proven by one study in 1996, which still holds true today. Health problems, even in legal prostitution, include exhaustion, frequent viral illnesses, STDs, vaginal infections, backache, sleeplessness, depression, headaches, stomach aches, and eating disorders. Jeffrey Barrows puts it this way: even if a prostitute is being tested every week for HIV, she will still test negative for at least the first 4 to 6 weeks. And that whole time, she will be working as a prostitute and possibly infecting other Johns, which only increases the unhealthiness, even in legal brothels, the unhealthiness of the business. Legalizing prostitution licensed brothels will not and does not solve any of the problems that exist in the current system, and in some cases can actually exacerbate the problems.